Welcome to the Geekly. My name's Jules.
I'm Lex.
Today we're going to talk about Arrow, Supergirl, Flash, Legends of Tomorrow, Doom Patrol and Game of Thrones, and we're going to spoil the crap out of all of them. So if you haven't seen them, watch them and come back later.
Okay, so let's just start with Arrow.
The thing about Arrow at the moment is every episode ends with Oliver and Emiko having like a showdown where he doesn't kill her, arrest her, incapacitate her in some way. Episode 19 was the one where he told about Dante at the very end of the episode. They had a confrontation last week where she dropped the building on him. They had a confrontation at the end of this episode where she got away again with just a little smoke bomb to mask her escape. Presumably they're going to have a showdown next week at the end of the episode. When you have so many showdowns like between two characters, like the main protagonist and the antagonist, I'm kind of desensitized to them talking now. Whenever we do get the showdown, I'm just going to be like, oh great, okay, they're together again. I kind of feel nothing for this, the antagonism between them. It's been done like 3 times in the last 3 episodes. Pick a side, kill her, arrest her. She's not good enough to constantly be escaping from them, I think. I don't know, do you have any feelings on that?
My feelings are kind of like taking that concept and expanding it, because I mean, having the future 2049 scenes have basically eliminated the stakes.
Yeah.
You know, like in this episode, we have kind of what's supposed to be a suspenseful moment where Roy supposedly risks his life, but he's alive in 2049, so he's cool. I mean, basically, we've seen everybody in 2049 except for Oliver and Diggle.
Yeah.
We know Oliver is going to die during Crisis. Will we ever have another moment of suspense in Arrow again? Because, like, we know how the story is going to end. We know who lives. I had one moment in this thing, like, when Diggle got shot, and I thought, oh shit!
Yeah.
And then they walked it back, and I was just like, what the fuck, guys? I mean, that moment where, you know, Oliver shoots Emiko, and then he turns around and sees that Diggle has been shot as well. Like, that would have been a great moment if it actually happened.
Yeah.
And they just didn't commit to it.
Yeah. Similarly, I was thinking the exact same thing with Roy. When they find Renee kind of like pinned under a thing, I thought, oh shit, oh no, he's alive in the future, isn't he?
And he's totally fine.
Totally fine, yeah. The only time this whole season has really got me was when Dinah had her throat cut.
Yeah.
And I was like, as we watched and kind of she was like almost bleeding out, I thought, oh my god, like, and then I forgot that she was alive in the future. But yeah, you're right. Every kind of emotional response we could have to these episodes at the moment, it's underpinned by this idea that they're all alive in the future. So, no.
It's kind of disappointing because, I mean, I've really enjoyed Arrow up until this point, but there aren't any stakes. There's nothing to be invested in. You know who's going to live, you know who's going to die. It's just kind of like going through the motions now. 'Cause, I mean, you know, yeah, Oliver was pinned beneath the thing, but we've got 10 more episodes, so they're not going to kill Oliver off now.
I liked seeing Tommy Merlin back. It felt a bit strange for him to be back as this kind of hallucination that Oliver was having. The first scene like showed him getting out of his predicament of being like buried under loads of rubble, and Tommy sort of helped him out. But it was nice that they had this idea, this conversation between them, that Oliver, you know, you've got to break away from your father's cycle. I mean, how many times during like the 7 seasons has he tried to break away from his father's cycle?
Several times, and every episode this season has mentioned it.
Yeah, and so he finally...
Well, and the whole Slab Side season was all about breaking the cycle of violence.
Talking to the shrink. I liked the way that Tommy was kind of impart this knowledge on him, but it's nothing new really. And then he met up with Miko, and he was like, he'd rejected the idea from Tommy. He was like, no, I'm going to pursue this route. And then in the hallucination, he kills Miko. He wakes up and thinks, okay, well, I've got to, once and for all now maybe, shed this idea that killing people is right, got to get away from the cycle of violence. And he tries to kind of educate his sister, but I think she's kind of rejected it, and presumably she's going to die next week. Although with this show you just don't know. They'll probably have her back in season 8 still trying to kind of offer her some kind of salvation.
I don't really understand this whole push for Oliver to like embrace her as part of his family. I mean, he tried that several times, and she rejects him every single time. He keeps coming up and being like, I'm not my father, you know, we're not our parents, we have a chance to do something new, we are family, we should, you know, work together to change our family's legacy. And every single time she's like, no, I have zero interest in being your sister. I want you to die. I want everybody you know to die. And it's kind of like, how many times is Oliver going to try to like save her before... Well, I mean, I guess they can't really lose anyone at this stage because they're all alive in 2049.
It's just kind of spinning its wheels in a really unfortunate way, because we know season 8's the final one, and it's just the same thing over and over and over again. And sometimes when you get a writer's room, instead of, you know, if it was a 6-episode thing where the same writer writes all the episodes, they know the kind of emotional journey that the character's going on. They know what lessons the character's learned. They know what the headspace in. When you've got different people writing every episode, sometimes these things just get repeated over and over and over over again because the showrunner might, not be doing quite as good a job as you'd hope they would do. I think we've said it a few times this season. It's just like dredging up ideas from the past and replaying like the hits, If Oliver hasn't honestly learned about these lessons by now, there is like no hope for him. He's been trying to break away from killing since like season 2. He's been trying to break away from like a cycle of violence and just learn the lesson, or just, I don't want to hear about it anymore. That's where I am with Arrow at the moment.
Okay, Supergirl? I have very little to say about Supergirl this thing, except that Lena is a badass, as always.
Yep.
Landing the plane, fighting, she is fearless.
Yep.
I really like her. And Kara should have told her, because Lena's going to find out from Leks or something, and it's just going to blow up in everybody's faces and be a bad thing.
So we're at season 4 with Supergirl, I think, and I just feel like there have been several times throughout the whole show where Kara could have told Lena that she's Supergirl. It would have been like a show of trust, a show of faith. They work well together as Supergirl and Lena. They work well together as Kara and Lena. Just do us all a favour and just bite the bullet. Tell her it'll benefit everyone. You'd be stronger for it, a stronger partnership. And there were 3 times in this episode alone where I was like, oh, finally. It's finally going to happen. Yes. When they were in the plane and she just took off her glasses and put her hair.
The super pose.
I thought, okay, well, that's not quite how I would have done it. But then Lena's like, just talking about how people have betrayed her trust throughout the past, and she quickly put the glasses back on. I think I'm kind of on the same side as you. I think the moment is now past, and I think Lena will find out, not from Kara. Leks will just tell her, and it'll be the ultimate betrayal, and Lena will be turned into like a villain for series 5 or something, and they will have a massive confrontation. It may even push her kind of towards Leks, maybe. I don't know. I hope not. Alex, in the space of 5 episodes, has gone from being single to kind of having a girlfriend to almost getting a kid, pretty much in the space of 5 episodes. I like that the mother of the child decided not to give the child away, and so Alex and Kelly will probably be brought together by this kind of unfortunate thing that's happened. So they kind of feel slightly more organic. It's been kind of quick. I mean, we talked in Legends, Nate and Zari, it's been about the similar amount of time.
I think the difference, though, in this, because, as soon as Kelly came on, her, first scene with Alex, it was like, oh, they're going to hook up.
Yeah.
And I was kind of, feeling that it was going to be forced and everything, but I think in this relationship, having Kelly kind of support Alex, and normally Alex would have gone to Kara, but she's not around, and having Kelly kind of be with her during this very emotional moment and being this kind of supportive figure for her, I think it's provided a good foundation for them getting into a relationship in the future.
I think you're right. I think just sometimes you need an element to bring people together rather than just they're both single. And so they're going to come together over this moment. It's going to feel kind of more organic, and I think that's a good thing for the show. Final act choreography, fight scenes. I watch the fight scenes sometimes in Arrowverse, and I just think, wow, how terrible are these fight scenes? And you think about Daredevil in Netflix. Obviously the budget's probably 10 times as much, but one thing that really struck me this week was how poor the choreography for fight scenes is. One other thing, when Lockwood's in the DEO and he's just kind of ordering people about, it was a bit weird because his kid just walked in, and everybody seems to have the run of the DEO at the minute.
This is the most unsecured secret government organization ever.
But Lockwood's someone that I just want him to kind of disappear now. It's gone on for way too long. This is another series that just seems to be kind of petering out, and I'm not. Speaking of seasons petering out, let's talk about Flash.
I actually thought this episode was fairly decent. I mean, you had kind of...
Fairly decent. You hear that, folks? We got a fairly decent for the Flash. Praise the Lord.
It is a low bar.
Yeah.
There was momentum, there wasn't...
Can we talk about momentum? What exactly happened in this episode? They've found out that they've got this mirror gun they're gonna send the dagger away, and the last minute Ralph's like, no, don't do that, because she had the dagger in the future. So, and then we see Eobard Thawne with it strapped to his chest, presumably as he's just about to be executed. What's kind of going on?
He's going to use the dagger to get out, and that's when the confrontation with Barry is going to happen, and that's going to be the season finale.
Yeah. Cicada just...
The thing I don't get about Cicada is, she is a metahuman, right? So if she releases this thing that kills all metahumans, she's essentially going to kill herself, right? I mean...
You are overthinking the show, my friend. I'm really desperate to get to kind of the Eobard Thawne Flash showdown, and the Cicada just seems to be... Every week there's another little ploy or little plan to get rid of her dagger. Presumably they've found the right way to do it now, but yeah, it's come back 5, 6, 7 episodes too late, I think, to save this season. But what did you like about this episode then?
I like that they actually seemed to stand a chance against Cicada. They had a plan and they executed it, and I mean, Dibney kind of figured out at the 11th hour that their plan was wrong and tried to stop it. But previous episodes have been a lot of Team Flash standing around debating things, a lot of family drama between the West Allens, and a lot of of reassuring Nora or apologizing to Nora or comforting Nora, and there wasn't a whole lot of this. And like, I mean, Nora even kind of stepped up a bit in this episode and said, you know, I'm not a child, stop treating me like one, I'm an adult, I can make my own decisions. She seemed more like an adult than a petulant teenager in this episode, which I appreciated, because I mean, for most of season 5, she's just been this kind of whiny, sulky presence in the background, being like...
I think I find her kind of character arc across this season problematic. It's mostly not changed, and then suddenly we're supposed to believe that she's had this epiphany and she's now an adult. It was good, and this was the best we've seen of her, but again, it was just a little bit unbelievable, and it
was too late.
This whole season's felt quite jumbled, and so having this now in the penultimate episode kind of feels very unearned. It does feel too late, like you say. I mean, she's learnt so many lessons, she's done so many terrible, made so many horrible mistakes. These lessons should have been learned a long time ago. Even this episode where Barry's like, right, I'm running to do this, and she's like, I'm coming with you, and he's like, no, you're not. And again, she throws this kind of mini tantrum where Iris is kind of has to intervene. The problem is, it's just this show's all over the place, character development wise, mental age wise. We've got one episode left. It's just been a real mess.
There hasn't been a lot of development of Nora. We've just kind of been, it's kind of similar to Iris. We've just been sort of told to accept her because she's Barry's and Iris's daughter. You know, we were told to just accept Iris because she's Barry's love interest. The work hasn't been put into making the character a fully realized, independent entity from Barry. They're just accessories to Barry, and that's kind of the big problem with the plotting, is the characters aren't fully realized.
Do we want Nora to stay for next season?
No.
Do we pray that somehow she gets sent back to the future?
Yes, desperately. So, Legends. Most of this episode I really enjoyed. It was kind of like classic Legends. Like, basically everything off the Wave Rider was good. Everything on the Wave Rider was crap. And the fact that they solved their being stuck in an avalanche by not doing anything was just kind of like, what was the point of having them in the avalanche except to have the whole Nate and Zari kind of pseudo-parenting a dragon egg, which was just...
Being really beaten over the head with that relationship, aren't we? But we're being told this is what we want. I wish there was just a tiniest bit of subtlety, but it's like, I don't know, it's like they've got a PR company and they've thought, well, how do we sell this? How do we really push this on people? And it just comes off as really heavy-handed. Let's talk about the hypnotising that was happening in the Time Bureau. Gary obviously has his enchanted nipple, or his cursed nipple,
which has an eyeball in it now, which is just really freaky,
horrifying. And he's just walking around saying Gary Green is all the man you need, and he's having these one-on-ones with all the people that work there, giving them a performance review. It was good. I mean, this was kind of prime Legends, wasn't it? Hypnotising people by them looking into his nipple. And
I like Mona being the resourceful one. You know, they took Ava and Nora off the board fairly early.
I quite wanted Nora and her to kind of do it together, because we haven't really had much of Nora, and I really like Nora, but she fell for the nipple just like everyone else. Constantine in the past, meeting one of his kin who was also into magic. The whole thing was to try and get this person called Tabitha back from hell. And it turns out that Tabitha is the fairy godmother from the earlier in the season. And just to see Ray and the fairy godmother kind of making out was interesting. Yeah, and so those two and Gary are this kind of quote-unquote dream team now. What do you make of it, that as the antagonists of the rest of this season?
It's a typical Legends antagonist. It's ridiculous and off the wall, and yet somehow makes sense. I'm looking forward to seeing Constantine in hell.
Yeah,
I think
he's looking to try and get Ray's soul out. They talked about how Sarah and Rory were the only two originals left on the ship. I just wondered if they're kind of foreshadowing Ray. Maybe they don't save Ray. Do you think they save Ray?
I think he plays kind of a vital role on the team. Kind of like the heart of the Legends. I think the team will kind of suffer if they don't bring Ray back.
Right, let's talk about Doom Patrol. Cyborg's thing in the last couple of episodes was he's becoming more cyborg. He's going full cyborg. I think, is it Grid? Is working against him, becoming a kind of Hal. Can you imagine being a cyborg and having a Hal built into you?
It's like a nightmare. We've given Cyborg a lot of shit in the run of this show up until now, but I think this was kind of the first episode where I was really interested in what was going on with him, and where they seemed to sort of be tapping into the really interesting parts of his story. The moment where Mr. Nobody gets him to kill his father is such a brutal moment. I know this show is dark, but I didn't expect that sort of darkness.
He just savagely beat his father to death because somehow Mr. Nobody implanted these ideas that one of the aides to Silas was saying that if you do this to your son, he might become full cyborg. There might be nothing of him left. It very much went along what we probably as viewers already thought was in Silas's mind, that all he saw his son was a project. He wanted to see what happened when he kind of put the two elements together. And yeah, it didn't take much for Victor to kind of think, yeah, my dad's against me, because there've been so many.
Like you said, it was really believable that Silas would do those things.
Yeah, we've been kind of drip fed all these ideas that there's more to his mother's death than meets the eye. But I think Mr. Nobody, didn't he say you don't have memories, you have programming?
Yeah.
And so it will be interesting to know what was real and what wasn't. Presumably, I kind of think nothing was real now. I think his mother probably did just die in a very kind of way that we've been shown. Vic's been suspicious all along, and he just needed this extra little push to go full murderous psychopath and, yeah, beat his dad to death. And that idea that the moment where the little graphic of Mr. Nobody and the little confetti falling down, you've done it, you've cracked it, yes, well done, you bought into it, and it was all a lie. He did love you. I mean, even this episode, because when Silas goes to the rest of the team and says, right, we need to go and save my son, this is how we do it. And they go in there and they're immediately captured. It's been staged. Do you think Silas has betrayed them and he's giving them to the Bureau of Normalcy? But they knew they were meant to be captured. And then obviously when Rebel Man pukes out Rita, you know that everything's okay. But I think we as viewers have just completely we've been wary of Silas.
Yeah, I mean, when he turned them in, I was just figures.
Yeah, I like that they freed loads of people that Robot Man called weirdos like us. So presumably we'll probably get some more people like Animal, Vegetable, Mineral Man appearing on the show. Yeah, a pretty good episode.
It's a really well put together show.
It's a very polished show, isn't it? This feels like a show that will always be polished. I think the DC streaming service is going to keep delivering high quality stuff.
Right, so we might as well get this over with.
Let's talk about Game of Thrones.
Alright, after this most recent episode, I think I was being too kind to them with the Battle at Winterfell, or the Long Night as the episode is actually called.
Yeah, do you know what? We were all ready to go and publishing it as the Battle of Winterfell. I was like, oh shit, it's not actually called that. Yeah, 11th hour discovery, the Long Night, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, because one of your complaints about the Long Night was the lack of death, and I was okay with that because I presumed that I feel that the characters that were left alive still have important arcs to finish. They aren't at the end of their arcs yet, and I expected the next 3 episodes to kind of tie up those loose ends. This episode basically went completely off the rails. That banquet scene went on for fucking ever. Nothing was happening. We didn't learn anything or gain anything from the interactions. It was basically just watching all of the characters get very, very drunk.
And kind of a slightly abandoned, ostracized Danny to the side, yeah.
Then we have the Brienne and Jaime thing, which, I knew it was going to happen, but even so, as it was happening, I was just thinking, no, this is not where these characters go. This is not their storyline.
I mean, much like Arya kind of saying, that's not me, to Gendry, I kind of wanted a Brienne and Jaime moment where she kind of didn't need to be, I don't know if define's the right word, but she didn't need to be engaging a sexual relationship with Jaime. The character's done so well. She's broken so many kind of barriers, becoming the Knight as well last week. Why did we get this from her and Jaime?
And then, seeing her kind of begging him to stay was just, I did not believe that Brienne of Tarth would beg for anything. I mean, her whole life has been people discrediting her and insulting her and mocking her and kind of saying she isn't worthwhile because she has a lot of masculine traits. She's a great fighter. She's in a realm where women are not often seen, and she's had to kind of fight tooth and nail to get there. And then to see her just crumble into, ugly tears over Jaime Lannister was do you even know your own character?
I think when I was saying last week that I wanted more deaths, it was that I wanted more death because I presumed that a lot of these characters, there was nothing grander for them as conclusions to their kind of characters and character arcs than dying on the battlefield against the Night King. 2 in particular, I think I kept saying Jaime and Bran last week. Tormund was one where you thought, okay, he's had a great arc, he's great comic relief, he's on the battlefield now. What could happen if he survived? Do they make him leader of the Night's Watch or something? Do they just send him back to the Gift to kind of be the new Mance Raider? What do they do with him? Okay, he hasn't died, he's being left for something greater, and nothing really, he's being just sent north again, and it's just a bit
it just felt like they were writing those characters off, and I thought there was more they could do with Tormund.
Should we talk about Dany? This episode's called The Last Stark, but I would call it like The Fall of Dany.
Every episode this season, she just gets scarier and scarier, and the idea of her ruling the Seven Kingdoms at this point just fills me with absolute dread. It feels like her taking the Iron Throne would just be a repeat of the Mad King.
I mean, let's talk about her episode. Let's talk about what actually happens. I think the first shot is her kind of burning Jorah's body.
That was actually a really good shot with, like, all of the funeral pyres.
Yeah.
Just, like, all of the bodies and everybody kind of taking a torch and lighting them all at once and burning them all together. I mean, that was a really impactful way to start the episode.
Yeah, and they're obviously taking no risks just in case the Night King is back there somewhere and just doing his little rise thing again. So they're all definitely burnt and dead. She's obviously last episode found out that Jon is the true heir, or the episode before. This episode she basically says to him, don't tell anyone. You know, we can rule the Seven Kingdoms together. You tell your sister, we tell both your sisters, and they will tell people, and you're a man and people will want you to rule instead of me. And Jon's like, I don't want to rule, and they won't tell anyone, and he's just got this impossible naivety to him. You know, I mean, when they were at the Dragon Pit, or was it last season, where, you know, Cersei said, oh yeah, I'll give you all the armour you need, but you swear fealty to me. And he said, no, I've already bent the knee to Daenerys. And she's like, yeah, thanks, but like, just learn to lie. Like, everyone's, why don't you lie? And this is a situation where he could have just not told people, but he chooses to tell Arya, he chooses to tell Sansa. Sansa tells Tyrion, and Varys then are kind of like talking about treason against, you know, Daenerys. They both saying, who else do we back?
Kind of a sketchy thing, because technically Jon has a better claim to the throne than she does, so supporting Daenerys is kind of treason against Jon, even though he doesn't want to be king. It's a really convoluted situation, what is treason and what isn't.
And we get the idea that Varys is plotting to kill her somehow. Maybe not himself.
I think he's realized that, I guess kind of like what I've realized, she started off seeming like this kind of perfect ruler. Like, you know, what could be better? You know, she's freeing slaves, she's protecting women from being raped, you know, she has all of these ideas about making a better world, and then she gets to Westeros, and I mean, she's always kind of had a bit of a temper and needed sort of someone to temper her and say, wait a second, before you just react, think about what you're doing. And then she does, and she comes up with kind of a nice compromise. But in Westeros, she's getting less and less tempered, or the effects of her advisors are having less impact on her, and she's just becoming very vindictive, very vengeful, very angry. I think that will probably end up being her downfall, particularly against Cersei, because, you know, Cersei gets angry and she gets vindictive, but she is always cool and collected, and she always has a plan. And if Daenerys goes up against Cersei, she's going to do something reckless. I mean, like, she almost did it in this thing, you know, the first dragon got shot, and so what does she do? She, like, swoops closer to the thing, and the final dragon almost gets shot as well, because she pulls up at the last minute. I mean, I was expecting her to, like, set them all on fire. I mean, like, you're on a massive dragon against wooden ships. Why not just let loose the fire and burn them all?
So yeah, on top of all those things, obviously you've just mentioned that the dragon gets shot out of the sky. The whole fleet have scorpions on them now, which is quite cool. Probably the only moment of restraint she has in the whole episode, or maybe the whole season, where she is about to try and burn all these ships, and she manages to pull herself away. And then they go and have this meeting, kind of, with Cersei, where Cersei's up on the walls of King's Landing, scorpions lining the walls. They've clearly learned, you know, what gets a dragon, and they have this kind of parley. Just the moment when the mountain cuts Missandei's head off, and the reaction, her face, and her just kind of stumbling as she turns away, and just this rage, this seething rage in her face. And I just get the impression that next week's episode there'll be like a battle, obviously, but I just think the dragon's going to go in there and just absolutely burn the city.
It's probably been said as many times as people have said that what Jon wants doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That them warning her against just burning the whole city, and she no longer cares about the innocents.
Yeah.
She's quite willing to sacrifice whoever she needs to sacrifice. Can we just talk about Missandei's death for a minute? Game of Thrones is so white. When we like rewatched in preparation for season 8, I was just kind of shocked at the absolute lack of POC characters, and then the few POC characters that have been in the show, aside from Grey Worm, they've killed all of them. And this kind of finally culminated with Missandei, which has kind of Game of Thrones Twitter up in arms, and understandably so. I mean, she's not a main character, but she's a supporting character. She's one of the 2 POC characters in the show now. There was absolutely no reason for her to die.
Yeah.
Jorah died. She lost another dragon. killing Missandei to give her motivation to, like, destroy Cersei is just... It's a tactic that's used way too often with POC characters, and it's a disservice to Missandei. I mean, she and Grey Worm have, like, the purest relationship out of everybody in Game of Thrones. Character-wise, they are probably the two purest individuals in the entire show. They don't have ulterior motives. They genuinely want a better world, and they're willing to fight for it, but they also want to, like, be able to go off and kind of live their life in peace. And, I mean, out of all of the characters in the show, those two deserved to have that. And then to have her just used as a plot device is so frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Grey Worm would die last week. I would rather Grey Worm died last week. And Missandei was sad but lived. Daenerys has just had, like, is it Rhaegal?
Yeah.
Killed. That is motivation enough. That is her, in her own words, her child. Missandei, obviously a great friend, but she just had her child killed by someone under the employ of Cersei. The Missandei death is just... it's too much. It's unnecessary. She already has all the motivation she needs, and so as vindictive and as is so on brand for Cersei to have done it. Just I didn't need it. And if the couple were to not have their happily ever after, I would have had like Grey Worm die last week. Like the look on his face when Missandei died was absolute agony. You know, and this is an Unsullied. She has taught him how to, you know, to read, how to almost have emotion as well, how to be a more functioning human being.
She's given him individuality, or she's helped him find his own individuality.
Yeah. It just begs the question, has Grey Worm been spared just to look absolutely appalled and disgusted by this, or is he going to, you know, just have the battle of his life and like savagely kill everyone in King's Landing?
I think they're going to have him sacrifice himself and take a lot of Cersei's army with him, but like he's going to do one of those things where he runs into an impossible situation, takes as many with him as he can, but ultimately dies. And again, I think that's a disservice to the character. Yeah. We saw Bronn again in this episode.
Yeah, it was very interesting, wasn't it?
I did not find his behavior at all in character with Bronn.
I mean, join the list of people in this episode who are acting completely out of character.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, he's got this great friendship with Tyrion. He and Jaime kind of developed a sort of respectful camaraderie. I don't know if I would call them exactly friends. And he basically shows up and has them both at crossbow point and is kind of extorting various things from them. And just, it didn't seem like that's the approach Bronn would take.
He could have just gone up to him going like, yes, Cersei's offered me this to kill you. And, you know, he didn't need the crossbow. You know, what's he think they're going to do? You know, everybody around that table respects each other. They know the deal. They know he's a sellsword. Tyrion said
he's
whatever they offer
the best fighter
you.
Out of the three of them. Like, he didn't really need the crossbow. I mean, he even said that himself. You know, he told Jaime, I can beat you on your best day, and you are not in your best day. And Tyrion obviously is not a fighter really at all.
Tyrion's saying, you can have High Garden, which is
I think that's going to be a problem.
It's hugely problematic. You can't do that.
He didn't ask Dany. No, she's going to be like, no, he can't have High Garden. I'm not giving it to some, you know, sellsword.
Yeah, that was hugely problematic. But yeah, I think, I don't know what they're going to do with Bronn now. I mean, do you think they'll take umbrage with that and kind of try and get some retribution on him, or do they think he's just going to sit out the battle? It seems like
they're setting him up to kind of be evil and on Cersei's side, which I don't...
No. I'm not enjoying this season, I have to be honest, and I frankly think a lot of this is they're throwing a lot of spaghetti. I think the fact that Brienne slept with Jaime and could well end up with Tormund, you know, she might just head after him, means that I don't know if they're trying to appease everybody, and so I don't know if they're entirely in control. I'm more inclined to think that Tyrion and Varys are going to somehow get Jon on the Iron Throne. Daenerys will sack the city. She'll burn it. She may even kill Cersei, but she's going to, in a blind rage, just like women and children dead. It's going to be
another Dracarys moment, like when she freed the Unsullied. Like it's going to be that.
It's going to be like a genocide. It's going to be like absolutely terrible. And there's going to be this moment where, you know, Jon looks at Dany, or Tyrion looks at Dany, or Varys looks at Dany with a kind of disgust / fear in their faces. And so episode 6 will probably be like Jon v Dany, or the battle lines will have to be drawn again for who's going to be on the Iron Throne. I honestly don't know what to think right now, because everything is just constantly changing. They're really rushing a lot of things in these 6 episodes.
My fear for this season has been realized. Like when they said that there were only going to be 6 episodes, I was like, I don't see how they can resolve all of these storylines in 6 episodes, even with the longer episodes. And yeah, it's not working.
certainly one of Cersei, Dany, Jon has to die within the next 2 episodes, probably 2 of them, and my prediction will be that it's probably Cersei, and then the people you thought might be king and queen will actually vying for the throne in the final episode. They could kill all of them, and it could be Sansa. That could be what this whole Sansa regalness has been, and Tyrion could be her hand, you know. I couldn't tell you, and last episode I was pretty disappointed with. This episode is more confusing to me than disappointing, and I just think that they're making a lot of out of character decisions, and I think sometimes they're trying to have their cake and eat it, because Gendry and Arya slept together and then she turned down his proposal, so people shipping them got their thing, but also the people who wanted Arya to be independent also got their thing. And same with Brienne and Jaime, like, just make the hard decisions sometimes. I think a lot of people that survived the Battle of Winterfell, again, was because they are beloved, and you got to make the hard decisions sometimes. You just need to kill people and then to be killed, or you need to just not give people happy endings. And the show seems to be bending over backwards to give a surprising amount of happy endings, I would say.
I think it is a lot of fan service, and I think they've lost sight of what the story is and who these characters are. I mean, I feel like all of these characters, like, I feel like Tormund still has more to do. I feel like Brienne and Jaime still have more in their arc.
Lots of bad decisions.
Yeah.
I think there were going to be some great spectacle in the remaining 2 episodes, but I kind of get the feeling that they're going to be probably too many happy endings or too much fan service, I think. I mean, I just remember the days when they would just kill everybody and they'd just be, oh, you thought they were going to have a happy ending? Well, do you even know what the show is? You know, just death, 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 and not really caring what the fans thought. And that's great. Like, the fans always want people to be together and want happy endings, and that's why they're not writers of TV shows, you know. There's a balance to be struck that fans don't really ever understand. So stop trying to appease us and just give us the right ending. And at the moment, just even more so, I just again wonder why there are only 6 episodes here.
I think the end of Game of Thrones is going to be very similar to the end of Lost.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are going to be very unhappy, and overall the series will suffer because it has such an abysmal ending.
Yeah. The thing I'll remember this whole show for is great moments of spectacle. And the one moment I feel like this whole season that's been a great moment of spectacle was when Dany was flying her dragon with Rhaegal, who's a bit injured still, and just the 3 scorpion arrows going through him. The shock factor. Like, we used to get that kind of all the time, but it's crazy to say there's 2 whole episodes of a 6-episode season were like a prelude to the Night King's advance on Winterfell. It was all about fan service of people meeting each other that hadn't seen each other for seasons. It was people accepting death, you know, having just weird conversations, like the knighting of Brienne, just sitting around fire, like reminiscing. That's like a third of the season, and it was all just exposition. I think one of the most problematic things that could happen at the end of this season is Jon sat on the Iron Throne after all the years of Cersei, all the years of Dany being like talked about as this prodigal, you know, and for Jon, this just frustratingly naive.
He would not be a good king.
No.
He's a good man.
It's hard to believe he's not like a conscientious objector to battle, because you know, he
is so moral.
Yeah.
It is kind of like it's sort of debilitating for him.
Absolutely,
his morality.
Yeah. What do you think the reaction would be on like Twitter to Jon being the guy that after all of this, all the talk of Dany, Cersei, the Sansa kind of arc, he was sat on the throne? I mean, do you think?
There are a lot of people who like really love Jon Snow and Kit Harington, and I think those people would be happy. I mean, I like Jon. I think he's a great character. They've made some mistakes with him. He makes wrong choices a lot, but that's kind of part of his charm. Is he always tries to do the right thing, and it doesn't always work. I think if he ended up on the Iron Throne, it would be a temporary thing. I don't think he could like if the show ended with Jon being kind of the king forever.
Yeah,
I wouldn't believe that could be possible.
What did you make of when Tyrion said his parents are a Stark and a Targaryen? He's known the wildlings, they respect him. He's like the perfect person to be king. I think that was the biggest foreshadowing line in the thing.
Jon has been good at bringing very disparate groups together for a common goal. But, I mean, the wildlings are going back beyond the wall, so he doesn't really have them to support him now. He doesn't actually have an army in itself. I mean, Sansa's still got the Army of the North, but I think what they said was like a third of them are gone. Dany has kind of the biggest fighting force, and I really cannot see her co-ruling or surrendering the throne to him.
And on that note,
yeah, we will leave you for this week. You can follow us on Twitter at GeekNerdPod or Facebook.com/TheGeekly. We're on Patreon. If you join our $5 tier, you can get one of our very cool t-shirts. We also have some cool stuff for the $1 tier as well, if that's what you can do. We appreciate any support you can give us. That's patreon.com/geeknerd. And we'll be back next week.
Season finales of Arrow and Flash. Thank God for that.
Finally. Yeah, I mean, I think like every week it comes. I postpone watching any of this stuff until Tuesday because I think about it and it's just like, oh, I'm so not interested. So yeah, I will be kind of relieved when the Arrowverse starts to go away.
Yeah, some cool things come out in the summer we're going to be reviewing.